It sounded like we had our whole lives in front of us. Hey, I'm really liking this one, and I'm so glad to let you know that it's going well, because it's Conrad, and Conrad's my favorite! Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby, and today we're going to be doing a very exciting reading vlog where I'm going to be reading the entire trilogy of books of The Summer I Turned Pretty. I know this is not the usual content that you would see from me because this is a young adult romance series, which is definitely not something that I usually read. I also am not really a big series reader typically, but I decided to do this video because I just recently started watching The Show on Amazon Prime. This book series recently got turned into a show on Amazon, and it's been out since 2022. The show is currently in its third season right now, which is based off of the third book in this series. And I just started watching the show with my mom in July for the first time, and we just flew through the first two seasons of the show. You know, it's so funny because I never had any real interest in watching the show, and I always thought it was going to be a little bit too young for me. And in some ways, it does feel like it's a little bit too young for me, you know, because I'm 30 years old. But you know, the interesting thing is that these books were actually publishing when I was a freshman in high school, because this first book, The Summer I Turned Pretty, actually published in 2009, which was my freshman year of high school. I always felt like I was too old to be watching some of these like teen shows, but then last year, at the end of last year, I got really obsessed with The Vampire Diaries, and that kind of like changed my entire life. And so now I'm like a lot more open and willing to give different shows a try, because like you never know, they might end up being my thing. And this show, like The Vampire Diaries, also has this like love triangle between these two brothers. Another reason why I thought I would give these books a shot is because, you know, way back in the day, I actually did read the other book series by this author, Jenny Han. She's also the author of To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And you know, I'm talking way back like 10 years ago in 2015, I actually did read that book series. Me and my sister actually read that book series, and we both really liked it. But I just never got around to reading this trilogy specifically because it never really interested me at the time. And I figured now would be a fun time to try and get into the books and do a vlog like this, because not only is it currently summertime, you know, it's August as I'm filming this, but also because the show is having its final season right now, and season 3 is going to come to an end next month in September. And so I figured now would be the best time to like really do a deep dive into these books. And look at this cute shirt that my mom got me. My mom is really into the show as well, by the way. And so she said she got me this shirt because she knew that I was gonna make this video, and I was like, Mom, that is so cute. So Cousins Beach is where this book mostly takes place, if you didn't know. So just to give you an idea of what this book series is even about, we are following this young girl named Belly. I mean, her name is Isabel, but they call her Belly. And she has a brother, Steven, and her mom, Laurel, has this best friend named Susanna. And Susanna has two boys named Jeremiah and Conrad. And every single summer, all the kids get together at this beach house that they have in Cousins Beach. And so Belly has really grown up spending a lot of her summers with Jeremiah and Conrad. And now this is the summer that she turned pretty. You know, it's when she's about like 15 to 16-ish years old. And things are starting to change because, you know, like she's getting a little bit older. Her dynamics with the boys are kind of getting different. And this book series kind of explores a bit of a love triangle as she's trying to navigate her feelings for both brothers. I know it sounds a little bit cringy when I say it like that, and it is a little bit cringy, but it's also very fun. You know, so far with watching the show, I have been very Team Conrad since like the first season. I just absolutely adore Conrad. Conrad is kind of like the mysterious, quiet older brother that seems like a little bit more reserved. He does seem a little bit more moody at times, whereas like Jeremiah is the younger brother, and he's like the complete opposite. You know, he's like the golden retriever. He just seems like such a sweetheart, and he has so much great energy, and he is a little bit closer to Belly's age. And it has been really fun to watch this show with my mom, because so far my mom has been leaning a little bit more Team Jeremiah, and I've been Team Conrad. So it's been fun to kind of like share our feelings for like why we feel that way. And also, as a side note, I love the music in the show. The soundtrack for the show is like one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard for a TV show. I mean, not only because they play a lot of Taylor Swift, because they do play a lot of Taylor Swift, and even like the underrated Taylor Swift, okay? Like they're out here playing like False God, but also just the soundtrack in general. Like I've discovered so much amazing music because of the show, and also they've played some of my favorite songs of all time that I didn't think anybody else knew. So like it's been incredible to watch the show. I'm so excited. I also do include my reaction to the newest episode at the time that I'm filming this, which is season 3, episode 5. And like, holy shit, was it a good one. I decided how I'm going to do this video is that this entire reading vlog section of the video is going to be spoiler free. So I'm not going to spoil anything from the book series or from the TV show, but then at the very end of this video, I will warn you before we do jump into spoilers, but I'm going to be doing spoilers for each one of the books and kind of comparing the books to the seasons of the show to talk about how they're different. And then for the third book, because I don't know everything that happens in season 3 of the show because it's currently airing, I do talk about some spoilers from the end of this book, but I will mark that section as spoilery and different from the rest of the discussion. So you can watch this if you don't want to be spoiled. I will be warning you when I jump into spoilers. You know, something that's really great too about this book series that I did not know, because I was planning on reading all of these books physically with my eyeballs, because I was like, I just want to get in the head of like Belly's character and I don't want to listen to the audiobooks because I thought maybe they might be outdated and like, I don't know. But then somebody on my Patreon told me that the cast, the actors in the show, are actually the audiobook narrators for each one of these books, and I was like, no way. So I did end up only reading The Summer I Turned Pretty with my eyeballs, but then for the other 2 books, I did end up listening to them on audio, and like, it was so crazy to hear the actual actors in the show narrating these audiobooks. Like, that was amazing. I'm like, they should be doing this for every TV show adaptation. Like, I love the idea of the actual actors narrating the audiobooks. Like, that's so cool. Hello, good morning. I am kicking off this reading vlog today, and I thought it would be fun to go to the beach to read this book, because this book gives all of the beach vibes, I'm sure. And so we're gonna go down to this beach that I actually haven't been to in a few years. I also wanted to go and try this little coffee spot that's like right next to the beach, which I've also never been to this coffee place. I think it's actually new and that it's opened within the last year. I don't know, it's called Baywood Coffee, and I'm like, that is the cutest name that I've ever heard. And I just thought there would be literally no better time than to go read on the beach this summer than when I'm reading The Summer I Turned Pretty. You know, like, this feels like the most fitting scenario to have a beach reading day. So that's what we're gonna do. And it's actually, like, even though it's August right now, it's not that hot outside, and it's actually kind of gloomy today. It's only about 70 degrees, so it should be like a really nice day to go and read on the beach. I just got back in my car from doing some reading on the beach this afternoon. Dude, it's been so nice, but I wanted to come back into my car to update you because it's a little bit windy out there today. But I've been reading The Summer I Turned Pretty, and I got 180 pages in just while I was sitting on that beach, and I was only out there for maybe like an hour and a half. I don't know, this book is just absolutely flying by, and I'm actually liking this a lot more than I was expecting to. It might sound stupid to say that, like, what did I not think that I was gonna like it? Like, why would I even do this entire video if I didn't think I was gonna like it? But I do get a little bit nervous with reading young adult books, especially like young adult books that came out, you know, back in 2009. I was like, oh my god, because, you know, I was a teenager back in 2009, and during that time I was not reading a lot of young adult myself because I always found young adult books to be a little bit cringy even when I was like 17. I just was never really that into it, so I wasn't sure what to expect with this one. And like, listen, I don't know, if I hadn't already seen the show, I don't know if I would be loving this book as much as I am, but because I do love the show so much and because I can picture the cast and the characters like so easily in my head, I feel like it's definitely adding to my enjoyment of the story. But I do think that Jenny Han is just such a great writer. You know, like, I definitely remember loving her books To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Like, I really did like that series when I was younger because there's just something about the way that she writes her books. Like, I immediately feel connected to the characters. And I also think that choosing to read this book on the beach has really added to the atmosphere of this story for me. And basically the synopsis for this book is that Belly and her brother and her mom, every summer they go to Cousins Beach, where her mom's best friend, this woman named Susanna, she has this summer house that's like in Cousins Beach, and they spend every summer there together together, and then Susanna has 2 boys herself. Jeremiah and Conrad are both of her sons. And so it's interesting to see how that dynamic kind of changes in their group once feelings start to come into play, because Belly is like really beautiful now and things are starting to change within their group. And I do enjoy the way that the love triangle is written in this book, because Belly has always had a thing for Conrad. I mean, she's just always had the biggest crush on him, and it's like everybody in her family even knows, like her mom and her brother will tease her and be like, oh my god, are you gonna stop staring at Conrad? And then Jeremiah is like closer to her age, and she's never really seen Jeremiah in that way, but then this summer things seem to be like changing for them as well. And Conrad, he's kind of like the mysterious kind of older brother who like keeps his feelings close to his chest, you know, like you never really know what he's feeling or what he's thinking, and he definitely keeps to himself. Like she talks about how he's always like playing guitar up in his room alone during the summer. But I'm just really loving this one so far, actually. Like this is feeling like I could give this book 4 stars. I just love the way that Jenny Han writes. There was this one quote that I really liked when it said, Susanna was always calling us children, but the thing was, I didn't even mind. Normally I would, but the way Susanna said it, it didn't seem like a bad thing. Not like we were small and babyish. It sounded like we had our whole lives in front of us. And I was like, that actually kind of perfectly describes why I'm liking this book, even though it's a young adult book. Yes, at times the characters can say things that kind of sound like childish or babyish, but at the same time, there is something like magical about Jenny Han's writing that reminds me what it was like to be a teenager. I feel like I'm getting so nostalgic as I'm reading this because it's reminding me of those summers when I was in high school, when like life felt so simple then, but it also felt like you had so much opportunity and like the summer days just like never ended. You know, I grew up in Southern California, and so like I did spend a lot of my summers in Southern California at the beach. Like I used to love to go to Santa Monica with all of my friends, and Newport Beach is a place where I spent a lot of my summers too. So it does feel very nostalgic for that time in my life, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm liking this so much. I also just think, you know, Belly is such a teenage girl, and to like get into that headspace, yes, it can be a little bit annoying, but it also is making me feel nostalgic. You know, because when you're that age, it's like you latch on to like every little thing. You know, like if a boy looks at you a certain way, or if he offers you his hoodie, it's like, oh my god, this is it. Like this is peak romance. And I just love that about this book. I also love that she has a best friend named Taylor who also comes and visits her sometimes in the summer. So there's also some like weird tension there sometimes with Taylor being like wanting to get with like Conrad or Jeremiah as well, and the way that she's so insecure about it but doesn't know how to tell her like, no, they're both mine, like you can't have either one of them. And like I totally understand that like jealousy, and I feel like sometimes when you're a teenager you can be jealous of like the dumbest things, but I feel like I was the same way as a teenager. Like I get it. I also love Belly's relationship with her brother Steven. Like at times it literally has made me laugh out loud, like the way they're so casually cruel to each other. You know, I didn't grow up with a brother, obviously, like I only have my sister, but I did have a few different cousins, you know, growing up in California that had the brother-sister dynamic, and like I feel like their brother-sister relationship is so realistic because every brother and sister that I've known in real life has acted exactly like this, and it just makes it so funny to read. There was a moment where they were playing Truth or Dare together, and Steven says, my turn to ask a question, Belly, would you rather eat mayonnaise every day or be flat-chested for the rest of your life? Like freaking rude. Those are things that only a brother could say, you know what I mean? And this book so feels like it takes place in 2009, which is something that's also very fun for me, you know, because 2009 was the year that I was a freshman in high school. And something that does feel so dated about 2009 is when she gives this boy her phone number. She gives him the house phone number instead of her cell phone number, and I'm like, oh my god, house phones! Like what a throwback. Like nobody has a house phone anymore. And I'm also really liking the dynamics between Belly and her mom and the way that their relationship is explored throughout this book, because Belly does feel a little bit awkward around her own mother. Like she doesn't feel as close to her own mom as she does to Susanna, and Susanna has always said like she's the daughter that she never had, and in some ways she does feel a little bit closer to Susanna than she does to her own mom, but it's because they're very different. And I think this book is interesting in comparison to the show, because I feel like in the show you do get to see, you know, Susanna and her mom's relationship fleshed out a little bit more, because in the book you're only getting the perspective of Belly, so like you're only seeing those characters through her lens, if that makes sense. But then in the show I thought it was really cool because you get those scenes where like Belly isn't even in the scene, and you get to see their friendship and their relationship even more. But I really love all of the different character dynamics in this book, and I feel like Jenny Han just does such a good job fleshing out these characters. So I am really liking this one, and I'm so glad to let you know that it's going well. You know, I had the thought while I was reading this today, I was like, god, I wonder if Jenny Han has written any adult books, or if she plans to write any adult books anytime soon, because since I do like her writing so much in a young adult book, I would be so curious to see how she would handle an adult book. Like I want her to write an adult rom-com so bad. But anyway, I have a little bit less than 100 pages left of this, so I think I'm going to head back to the house now. I need to pick up some groceries on on the way back to the house because I want to make my taco bowls for dinner tonight and I don't have everything that I need. Hello, it's like 4:30 in the afternoon and I am now home. Dude, that Chobani flavor that I just tried this afternoon, that was the first time that I've ever tried it and it's so good. It might be one of my new favorites. I mean, I freaking love coconut, and the cookies, oh my gosh, it tastes like those Girl Scout cookies that I'm obsessed with. Anyway, I finished the book and I do think I'm probably gonna give this one 4 stars. I mean, maybe like 3.5, but I think I want to give this 4 stars just because I feel like this was like the perfect light kind of read that I was really in the mood for today. And the reason why I want to give this one 4 stars as opposed to like 5 stars or something higher is because I don't think this book handled some of the emotional moments as well as the TV show handled it. I mean, if you're wanting like a side-by-side comparison of like things that are different from the book in the first book compared to like season 1 of the show, then stay tuned for the end of this video because I am going to go into like more spoilery details about like what was different and what worked better for me in the show than in the book. But you know, there are some emotional moments like leading up to the ending of this book, and I just think it was handled a little bit better in the TV show for me because I know season 1 of the show had me so emotional near the end, whereas like this book didn't really ever make me feel like I was about to be emotional. Like I just feel like those scenes needed to be fleshed out a little bit more. I also think the character Cam in this book, I did not like his character in the book nearly as much as I liked him in the show. I feel like they did a much better job with Cam's character just in general in the show, because in this book he feels very like one-dimensional and almost kind of like rude at times. So I wasn't the biggest fan of Cam's character in the book. I do think that there are moments where Belly, you know, as a character, like she does read a little bit juvenile at times, and just with the way that she like argues with like her brother, or the way that she'll argue sometimes with Conrad or Jeremiah, I do think at times she can read a little bit young, which I know is maybe not a fair critique because she is only like 15 years old for the majority of this book. I also forgot to mention that something that also makes this book feel even a little bit younger is that in between some of the chapters we will get like flashback chapters to this summer when she was like 10 years old and 11 years old and 12 years old. So like there are times where you're reading from her perspective when she's like 11 years old in this book, and it's like because she's always had a thing for Conrad, in a lot of those flashbacks you're just seeing her kind of like having this crush on Conrad and like what she was feeling in those years, and like you get to see the reasons why she started to have a crush on him in the first place. So like I definitely understand why they needed to be there, but I also think it can make the book feel even younger since you're reading from such a young girl's perspective in those parts. I do think as far as like language goes, with things being a little bit outdated since this came out in 2009, I mean luckily the story did not feel too outdated to me, but there were definitely some lines that I was like, oh, that did not age well. Like there were a few times where they would have some kind of comment where they were like, what are you, her slave? Just because they were like doing something nice for her. The boys would always say that phrase like, what are you, her slave? And I'm like, okay, that did not age well, like that line. There was also one comment where her best friend Taylor said like, oh, that's so gay about something, meaning that it was lame. Then I liked that Jeremiah's character was like, what did you mean by that, Taylor? And he like called her out on it and kind of said that that was a shitty thing to say. So like at least it had that like self-awareness for that part. But anyway, I'm gonna save my spoilery thoughts for the very end of this video, and there is a lot that I want to talk about when it comes to spoilers. I'm also really excited because tonight, you know, for dinner I'm gonna make my taco bowls, as I mentioned, because I just got a bunch of groceries so that I can make those. But then me and my mom are also gonna start watching Gilmore Girls for the first time. This is a show that's like, you know, super popular, and I always hear people talking about it as like a classic. My sisters watched the whole thing and I've just never seen it yet, and so me and my mom are gonna start watching Gilmore Girls tonight, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then hopefully tomorrow I will get started on the next book in this series.
Old days, I used to think I'm the problem, that I was way too sensitive, reacting way too much, until I realized we were different types, carrying a different triggers, scaring us to death. Oh, someday we will collide someplace where we can hide our space. Forget the world outside, just for a while, some way. We will be fine, safe place, just you and I, always. I will wait for us to collide. I'll wait, I'll wait. Old days, I used to blame me for crying, till I realized that I had needs you didn't meet. But that's all days, now that we see.
Hello, hi, it is the next afternoon. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon, but I wanted to update you because today I have just finished reading It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han, which is the second book in this series. This morning I woke up and it was so rainy outside. It was actually raining last night. Like right after I got home from the beach yesterday, it started raining, and then it was raining so loud all night. Oh my god, it smells amazing outside because it hasn't rained in like a few weeks now. Also, last night me and my mom, we did start watching Gilmore Girls. We got 4 episodes into season 1, and on my Netflix it was showing that I've watched the first 8 episodes of Gilmore Girls, but like it must have been a couple years ago that I tried to get into it because I don't really remember much about these first 8 episodes. But so far it is really cute. I feel like Gilmore Girls is like that perfect kind of like cozy show. I'm really liking the mother-daughter relationship already, and I love the like early 2000s nostalgia that I'm already feeling watching the show, so that's going very well. But oh my gosh, this morning when I woke up, I literally saw a message from my library that said my audiobook hold came in for this book this morning. And I was like, dude, that was so perfect because I actually put it on hold a few days ago and it said that it was gonna have a 2-week wait. So I was like, okay, I'm not actually gonna get it in time. And I was able to get the audiobook checked out in time. So like, that's amazing. And so I was able to listen to this one on audio as well, which was very cool, you know, because as I mentioned, the audiobooks are actually narrated by the actors on the show. And unlike the first book, this book, we actually do get Jeremiah's perspective, which is definitely interesting. I think getting Jeremiah's perspective definitely added so much to this story, just because you get to see a lot more moments between Jeremiah and Conrad when Belly isn't there. And I feel like that added a little bit more context to like their relationship and their dynamic. And so without jumping into any spoilers for the book or for the show, book 2 kind of picks up, you know, right where the last book left off. And all of these characters are dealing with a very significant thing that kind of like changes all of their lives at the start of this book. So this book is definitely a little bit more serious and it's a little bit more sad just in tone compared to the first book. And the main thing happening in the second book is that it's still about Belly trying to, you know, navigate her feelings for both Conrad and Jeremiah. But there's also a lot more happening in this book plot-wise that I don't want to get into because it definitely spoils things from the first book. But I do think the plot and the pacing was a lot stronger in this book in some ways because, like I said, you know, getting Jeremiah's perspective, it really like opens things up a little bit more so you're not just in the head of Belly the entire time. I do think Belly as a character, like she does have her moments where like she's a little bit annoying. I mean, to be honest, all 3 of the characters, like all Conrad, Jeremiah, and Belly, they all have their moments where they're like a little bit irritating to me just with the way that they talk to each other. But like, in this second book, it did include one of my like favorite scenes from the show, like almost like word for word, this moment between her and Conrad. I was like squealing. There were also some really like heated scenes that happened in this book between Conrad and Jeremiah where I was like, damn, some of the things they say to each other, I'm like, that is so brutal. I do think though, overall, I'm probably gonna end up giving this book 3 stars. I don't think I enjoyed the second book quite as much as I enjoyed the first book, and I think it's probably because this one just is not as carefree and fun as the first book was. I also just think a lot of the emotional moments in this book, it just didn't work for me as well as it did in the show, because there was a lot of scenes in season 2 that had me like bawling my eyes out during the show, and like it really didn't even make me emotional at all reading this book because I feel like a lot of the scenes are written in a way where it feels so one note, or it feels like it's just the bare bones of a scene that could really bring me to tears if it was written in a way that was like a little bit more fleshed out. Like I just needed more of the feelings in those scenes. So yeah, I think overall this one is about a 3-star for me. You know, something that I think is really surprising about this book series is that Steven's character, which is like her brother, it's Belly's brother, he is not even in this book almost at all. And I'm just kind of surprised because Steven is like such a big part of the show, and he's actually like one of my favorite characters on the show, and I feel like he brings so much to the show, and yet he's like not even in this book almost at all. I don't even think he had one scene in this book where he was talking with Conrad and Jeremiah or Belly, and it's just so strange to me because he really is such a big part in the show. So that's a huge notable difference that I definitely prefer the show over the book. And yeah, like I said, stay tuned for the very end of this video because I am going to be jumping into this book with more details about how this one is very different from the show. But also, before I left, I ended up going to the used bookstore that's like right down the street from that bakery, but I ended up finding a copy of Hunted by Darcy Coates, and this is one that I have not yet read. I've only read a few books from Darcy Coates, and I've been a little bit like hesitant to want to read some of her stuff, but I've heard really great things about this one, and they had it there for only $6, so I was like, you know what, let's just give it a shot. And as I was checking out, the girl at the counter was like, oh my god, like, I haven't read this one yet, but it's really high up on my TBR, and she was like really excited about it, so she definitely has me even more excited to give this one a shot. But now, all I have left is We'll Always Have Summer. I think I'm going to just go ahead and jump right into this book next when I get home. I'm really looking forward to this book because I know that in this book we actually do get Conrad's perspective, like finally! And even though I don't have the audiobook checked out for this one, I mean it's still on hold at my library right now, but I think I might listen to a little bit of this audiobook on my Spotify because I still have like 5 Spotify hours left, and I think this audiobook is only like 6 hours, so I won't be able to read the entire thing via audio, but I do want to listen to some of this on audio because it's Conrad, and Conrad's my favorite. I mean, if it wasn't clear at this point, I'm still very much Team Conrad. Also, I'm really excited for tonight because tonight there's a new episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty, so I get to watch it with my mom, and tonight we're going to be watching season 3 episode 5, which I've heard is the Conrad point of view episode, and it's the one that's directed by Jenny Han. So like, I'm really excited to watch the new episode tonight. I think it's gonna be so fun. Anyways, I'm gonna get started on We'll Always Have Summer, and I will update you with thoughts once I get into it.
You're gone, but still you're with me. You will always be my love. Always be my love. My love.
Okay, so I wanted to check in because I've started reading We'll Always Have Summer, and I'm now 176 pages in, and I'm like just now getting to the point where like I haven't seen what happens next. I mean, isn't that crazy that the first like 4-ish episodes of season 3 happen in the first like 170 pages of this book? So I'm like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? No, I think the interesting thing about reading this one right now as season 3 is airing is that this book is actually pretty short. You know, it's still less than 300 pages, and yet season 3 is the longest season out of all of them. Like season 3 is 11 episodes compared to the first 2 seasons, which are like 7 and 8 episodes long, I think. So I love that season 3 seems like it's gonna have way more story and way more plot than even this book does, because we've already gotten through so much of the plot that they've shown in the show already. But so far this book has been going well. I mean, I was kind of surprised that like we didn't even get Conrad's perspective until chapter 20, which was almost 100 pages into this book. So while I was starting this, I was like, okay, where is Conrad's perspective? Like, it was taking a long time to come up, but I love getting Conrad's perspective. Oh my god, it's like my favorite thing about this entire series so far. I love hearing what's actually going on with him, because I feel like that's the one thing that I'm missing from the show so far, is that we don't really get a lot of Conrad's perspective, and we don't really get to see a lot of like how he's feeling and like why he does the things he does. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do think that they're handling Conrad's like inner struggles a lot better on the show than they have been dealing with it in the books, but I am loving getting Conrad's perspective. But like, oh my gosh, Belly is just being a dumb bitch in this book. Like, I literally want to strangle this girl. And I feel the same exact way about Belly at the beginning of season 3. Like, I feel like this is her most annoying period of time in the entire series. Like, she just makes some dumb ass decisions at the start of this book, and like I just don't understand the logic. Like, the logic has gone, it's left the room. I still am in agreement that most of the changes they made were for the better. Like, I do think that the show is a lot stronger than the book even still, but I do think that the book has had some of the best like key moments in the show. I just think the show expands on those moments a little bit better. I was not expecting Steven to like not even really be a part of this story at all, because in my opinion, Steven's storyline in the show is like one of the strongest aspects of the show. And like, I get that we can't really have as much of Steven's story because the entire books are told only from Belly's point of view, and then like Conrad and Jeremiah's point of view. So it's like, of course, we don't really get Steven's story because it's from their perspective. I still think that's what makes the show stronger than the books, because we get to see all of these side characters like her mom, Laurel, and like her brother, Steven. We get their stories way more fleshed out in the show, because in the book, it's so centered on Belly and like her romance with these brothers that like it's such a smaller scope. You know what I'm saying? Like we are only in Belly's head, in Belly's world. Whereas like in the show, I like that we get to see what's going on with the side characters more, and we get those emotional scenes with them too. But anyway, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon right now. I only have like, I don't know, not that much of this left. I'm already 170 pages in. I have maybe like 120 pages left of this. So, oh my God. I'm gonna sit here right now, finish the book. I'm also gonna be making a HelloFresh dinner tonight for my mom and my dad, because I just got the HelloFresh delivered today. And so I'm gonna make us dinner tonight, and then me and my mom are gonna watch the new episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty. And then after finishing this book, I will check in with my final thoughts.
As the leaves change color, I dive into you. When summer's fading, there's nothing to do but bask in the glory of the winter sun. Maybe this is the season of love. As the leaves change color, I dive into you. When summer's fading, there's nothing to do but bask in the glory.
We just finished episode 5. What the fuck?
Are you kidding me?
That was beautiful. That was sad.
Yeah,
that was
like,
that had a lot of great scenes.
Right?
Yeah, Conrad has my whole heart. Ugh,
Yeah.
that was depressing.
You know, I mean, that he loves her so much, he pulls over for beaches.
The peaches!
No spoiler alert.
Peaches! Dude, Conrad, what a man.
Yeah.
What a man.
Yeah.
He's just so attentive. He really, like, knows her, really watches her. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful to see. Belly
is
needs to get her
beautiful.
shit together, okay?
Yeah.
Belly's
She
pissing
needs
me
to.
off, man. Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, it
That was a good one.
Can't wait for
I'm
the-
deeply unwell.
Yeah, totally. We need a bigger Kleenex box here.
Yeah, the ending got me. Got
Yeah.
me right there. They always got to do this
Oh
to
my
me.
God.
How are you feeling about, like, because I know you started off Team Jeremiah, like, what are you feeling at this point? Like, do you still feel Team Jeremiah?
No. You know, I mean,
that ship sailed?
I didn't see Conrad for the total self who he really was, maybe. I like them both, but for different reasons. If we're talking about who's better for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
You
her
know.
connection with Conrad is just so deep.
It could be deep,
Yeah.
you know? We'll
that was a good one.
We'll see.
That was a good one. The
Can
show's
only
just
get-
so entertaining.
I know I was going to say, it can only get better.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to watching these every Wednesday together. It's just so
Absolutely.
fun. Oh, it's coming
Can't
to an
wait.
end soon.
No,
so,
no.
Okay, hi, hello. I just finished reading We'll Always Have Summer, and I hope that I can be coherent with my thoughts because I have so many thoughts about this book. You know, this was a really fun reading experience for me. Like, this one was the most fun because there were so many things that happened in this book that I haven't yet seen in the show because, you know, as I mentioned, the show is only about halfway through season 3 right now. So it was really fun to kind of see a glimpse of like what could be happening in the show in these next upcoming weeks. I do think overall that this is a very solid and true adaptation to the show for the most part, but I actually really love almost all of the changes that they made from the book to the TV shows. And so just to talk about this book without getting into any spoilers, I know it's hard to talk about like the third book in a series without getting into any spoilers, but basically this book starts with a time jump. So this third book actually takes place a few years after the second book, so these characters are like a little bit older. Like I mentioned, you know, the first half of this book was really difficult to read because I just thought Belly was being such a freaking idiot. I think something that's really interesting about reading a love triangle like this, especially when it's a girl trying to choose between two brothers and the way that she kind of goes back and forth between them sometimes, I almost wonder if it makes her a likable character. Or like, do you think that she's even a redeemable character after everything she's done with them? Because if this was reality, I would be like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, you can't do this to like two brothers, you know, like you're gonna ruin their bond forever. But I think that makes it all the more entertaining to read about, you know, because I would only ever support this in a fictional scenario. But just to talk about the book as a a whole, I think this book is definitely the best out of the 3 books, which is fantastic. I'm probably gonna end up giving this one 4 stars. I think this was the easiest 4 stars out of all of them because the second half of this book, oh my god, there was so much tea. It was just so engaging. Like, I couldn't pull my eyes away from what I was reading. However, I do think that the very ending of this book, like, are you kidding me? It wraps up so quickly. Like, we get no closure. I can definitely see why they extended this season to be 11 episodes instead of like 7 or 8, because there's so much story crammed into the second half of this book, and there was just so much entertaining drama and like things happening, and then the ending is just like flash forward to a few years later and you get 1 chapter and it just barely touches on things that happened. Like, it was so unsatisfying. Like, the ending of this book was actually kind of ridiculous how unsatisfying. The way it just wraps it up so quickly, I was like, okay, I needed at least like a few more chapters at the end kind of explaining what ended up happening. But I do have faith that the show is going to do it a lot better. Like, I almost know for sure that the show is going to make this ending so much stronger. But I really think one of the highlights of this book for me was finally getting Conrad's perspective. Like, I just loved it so much because I am still Team Conrad. I've been Team Conrad throughout this entire experience. I don't know, at least for me, it's like with book 1 and book 2, like, I could see the appeal with Jeremiah's character, and I actually think that this is a really well-written love triangle. I mean, at least in my opinion, it's not so much about like who do you love more, but it's that who brings out the better side of you. And so I do think that the love triangle in this series is handled very well. I just don't know if Belly herself is a redeemable character by the end of this series. Like, I don't know, but I still want to give this 4 stars just because of how messy and chaotic and drama-filled most of that ending was. Like, it was very satisfying to read up until the very end. But anyway, now I do want to have the chance to jump into spoilers for all 3 of these books. So we're going to be starting with book 1 and season 1 and talking about the differences. And I'll go through each one of these books and each one of the seasons one by one so you can jump around if you haven't seen a certain part of the show yet. Okay, hello and welcome to the spoilery section of this video. In this clip, I'm only going to be talking about spoilers for book 1 and season 1 of the show and kind of talking about like the differences. I mean, one thing that I wanted to mention right away, something that I noticed that was different about the book versus the show, is that Jeremiah's character in the show, he is bisexual. And I mean, it's never really stated in the book what his sexuality is, but like there are a few moments where like he could have said that he was bisexual, or like he could have said that he had experiences with boys too, and it just never came up in the book. So I do think that Jeremiah being bisexual in the show is a change that they made, and I actually really love that because Jeremiah being bisexual is like one of my favorite things about Jeremiah's character. I also feel like the topic of Susanna's cancer was handled a lot better for me in the TV show, because in the book, the characters know about the cancer in a way because like they know that their mom has been sick in the past, but like they don't know that their mom is like as sick as she is and that she's sick again. But the thing with the show, what I liked in season 1 is that you could tell in season 1 that like Conrad actually knew. That explains why he was like in such a bad mood the whole summer, and that explains why he was like short with them, because he knew about his mom's cancer and he was trying to like hide those feelings. Whereas like in the book, unless I like completely missed something, both Conrad and Jeremiah were like finding out for the very first time at the end of this book. So it doesn't really explain why Conrad was being a little bit of a brat at the beginning of the book, because he didn't know yet about his mom's cancer coming back. So I feel like that was a situation that was handled a lot better in the TV show for me. I also feel like in the book, it's kind of strange because Steven ends up leaving like almost halfway through the summer because he ends up going to this like college admissions coaching thing. I don't know exactly where he went, but it's weird because Steven actually leaves like halfway through the book, and then he's not there for so many of the essential moments that I feel like happen in the second half of the book. And I actually liked that Steven was a lot more involved in the show, I thought, than he was in this book. It's like he was there for some of it and then he just completely disappeared. And so I actually liked that Steven's character was far more present in the first season of the show than he is in this book. I also think the Steven and Taylor thing was also handled better in the TV show, because in this book, Belly actually thinks that Taylor is hanging around with Jeremiah and that she likes Jeremiah, and then one day she goes on the beach and she sees Steven and Taylor making out on the beach and she's like, oh my god, why are you going after my brother? And she like makes it a big deal. And Steven at that point in the book, this is actually a flashback scene that this happens in. It happens the summer when she's only 14 years old, whereas like in the show it happens, you know, the summer that this is all happening. But I think it was handled better in the show because it was a little bit more juicy in the show. Like I think she had a valid reason to be mad, because in the book, Steven did not have a girlfriend when all of that was happening. But in the show, it was a little bit more juicy, you know, because like Steven actually had a girlfriend and like he was happy with his girlfriend, and that's why him him making out with Taylor was so like problematic, and that's why Belly was mad. Whereas like in this book I was like, why is she overreacting so much to like her brother making out with her best friend? Like I get that it's like a big deal, but like why would she have such a negative reaction to it? Like I guess in the show it just made more sense because Steven had a girlfriend and he was, you know, cheating on his girlfriend by kissing Taylor. I also think it is kind of interesting that there's no Deb ball in the book at all, you know, because one of the biggest things of the show in season 1 is how Susanna wants Belly to like go to this Deb ball and like do the whole debutante thing, and like it's such a big moment in the first season of the show, like her trying to figure out like who's gonna go to the Deb ball with her. I thought the Deb ball drama in the show was so much fun, and that was not even a part of this book. Like there was no talk of a Deb ball or anything like that. And then also, what is up with Cam's character in this book, dude? Like he was kind of an asshole sometimes. The way that Cam and Belly's relationship in this book just kind of like fizzles out at the end. It's like they never had any real conversation talking about how Belly still had feelings for Conrad. Like it was kind of left unclear and like open-ended between them, which I didn't really like. I mean, I like how in the show they had like a very adult conversation about her feelings and where she was at, and they kind of came to an agreement that they were better as friends. But like in the book, it just doesn't really happen that way. And I guess I was just kind of unsatisfied by their relationship and how it ended up going. I also think that where this book ends is kind of in a strange place because, you know, it does kind of end similar to season 1 where the boys find out, like all of them find out that Susanna's cancer is back and it's worse than ever, and this is probably going to be like their last summer at this place. And so it is really emotional, but I just didn't feel as emotionally tied to this scene as I did in the show, because like, oh my god, this was the scene that like made me bawl my eyes out watching season 1 when Belly and Steven both find out that Susanna's cancer is back and they're just like crying on the bed with their mom. Like that was one of my favorite scenes of season 1, and I feel like that scene was really like half-assed in the book. I also think it's kind of confusing the relationships at the end of the story because in this book Jeremiah was actually her first kiss technically, because they were doing truth or dare and Jeremiah just like kissed her on a dare, which I don't even think that happened in the show. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that was a thing. But then also by the end of this book, like her and Conrad are not together as far as I can tell, because she kind of confessed her feelings for him and then he was like, Belly, grow up, like I'm not the one, and he was like brushing her off. And then after the news about Susanna's cancer came out, then she was saying like she's so sorry or whatever, and he just said, I can't handle this right now. And so they're kind of not together. But then the very last scene of the book is them seeing each other again in like December time, but her and Conrad are not actually together at this point, which is interesting to me because it did kind of end different than season 1, because season 1 actually ended with her being with Conrad at the end. So far I am definitely seeing a lot of improvements with the show, which I don't think that that's a bad thing. I actually think that that's a really good thing that they were able to take this source material and turn it into something so much more compelling in the show. Jumping into some spoilers for book 2, It's Not Summer Without You, and then comparing this one to the second season of the show, I personally think the second season of the show is so much stronger than the second book. But something that I really did like, the flashback chapters when her and Conrad go to the cousin's house during Christmas time is almost exactly the same in the book as it is in the TV show. And when she says to him, that's because you're cold-hearted, and he says, for everyone else maybe, but not for you. Oh my god, it's exactly the same, and I just absolutely loved that about this. I do think the biggest difference with this book is that, you know, like I mentioned in the other part, Steven is like not in the book almost at all, which I really don't understand, like, because he's such a big part in season 2. And you know, one of my favorite aspects of season 2 was Steven and Taylor's relationship kind of developing throughout the show. Steven and Taylor like didn't even have anything in this book, which is weird to me because they definitely hinted at Steven and Taylor happening in the first book, because that's when Belly like caught them kissing, but like Steven and Taylor are like not even a thing at all in this one. I personally love Steven and Taylor's relationship. Like that was one of my favorite elements of season 2, so like I can't believe that Steven's not even in this book really. Also, there was a pretty big difference with the whole like infinity necklace thing, because when Conrad goes missing at the start of this book and then Jeremiah is like, hey, can you help me look for Conrad, and they go to his dorm room, that's when she sees the infinity necklace for the first time and she like knows that it was meant for her. But it's kind of weird because even when she finds the infinity necklace, we still don't have any context for that in the book, because we never got the scene of like Conrad explaining to her what infinity means and all of that from when they were younger. But I do like the way that it was handled in the book a little bit better, because in the show, you know, it's like she finds the infinity necklace in season 1, and then that's how she confronts him like the first time, and she's like, why didn't you give me my birthday present or whatever. And I feel like in the show it was a little bit awkward because she was like snooping through his bedroom to find that infinity necklace, and I didn't like the way that that was handled. Whereas like in the book, I feel like it makes more sense that she would just like see the necklace in his dorm room and then she would know that it's for her. Like I kind of like how that was handled a little bit better in this. But the biggest difference in book 2 is that there's no storyline of their aunt trying to take the cousin's beach house from them, and it's all their dad. Because, you know, one of the biggest storylines in season 2 of the TV show is like their aunt, which is Susanna's sister. After Susanna died, which is like the huge thing that they're going through in this book, is that, you know, their mom recently just died from cancer, and now her sister that she doesn't even really talk to, that's like not even a part of their lives, she's the one trying to take the beach house from them and trying to put it up for sale. And I actually thought that was like a really intense and kind of like interesting thing to watch. And the fact that there is no aunt in this book and like she does not even exist, and that it's only their dad that's trying to put the house up on the market, it just didn't feel as emotionally impactful to me in the book as it did in the show. Because I really liked the storyline actually of them like trying to get to know their aunt even though she was really cold with them, and then they were also trying to get to know their cousin Sky. I just thought that aspect of the show was like actually really strong, and I liked how getting to know their cousin Sky actually helped them with, you know, getting closer to their aunt as well and like really getting through to her. Another big difference that I noticed that I forgot to mention when I talked about the books yesterday is that Belly doesn't actually play volleyball at all in these books, and like she's not even that sporty at all. Like she does talk about how she's like really competitive when it comes to like swimming, and like she always wants to beat them, but like she's not actually playing any competitive sports, which is so weird to me because Belly in the show, she is very passionate about volleyball. And then, you know, just like the show, they end up throwing this huge party for like their last night at the cousin's beach house. But I think that's also why it's weird that Steven's not in this book, because like he's not even there for like their last night at the cousin's beach house. Like that's just, I don't know, I hate that so much. Just like the show, we do get that really emotional scene where like Belly calls her mom, and I feel like that scene, it was done okay in the book, but like that was one scene in the show that had me like bawling my eyes out. Like dude, the actress is so good in the show, and like that scene just like broke my heart. But I also think the scenes that followed that part, like wow, they were so perfectly adapted from the book, because like almost like word for word, the argument that she has with her mom when she gets there, and then the argument that Laurel has with the boy's dad about how like you didn't know what Susanna would have wanted for them, and like all that, oh my god, it was just handled so perfectly, and it was exactly like the book, so like that was really cool to see. And then even though at the end of this book we do get the scenes almost playing out exactly like it is, where they're both going to be helping Conrad study for his exam that they have to go to the next day, when they drive on the road to go to the college, and then that's when Jeremiah has this little moment where he's like, I'm in love with you, and like you deserve so much better than Conrad, and then they kiss, and then Conrad sees it. Like that almost plays out exactly as it does in the show. And then they do have a moment where like the roads are flooded and they have to go and like share a motel for the night. I feel like that scene was done so much better in the show because there was way more tension, I think, in the show. Okay, and let's talk about spoilers for book number 3. The first thing that I want to talk about, it's only going to be spoilers for like what we've seen so far on the show and like the differences between this book and the show. So I'm not going to be talking about spoilers for like anything that hasn't happened in the show yet. I mean, I will warn you before we get there, but just some differences between the book and the show that I wanted to point out right away is that Steven and Taylor never have a romantic storyline in this book series. Like that is fucking crazy to me, because Steven and Taylor are like one of my favorite aspects of the show. Like I really ship them together in the show, and I think that they're so cute, and like it's just mind-boggling to me that Steven and Taylor are never a thing in the books. There was a really cringy line, by the way, where Jeremiah said to Belly, he's like, you are the milk to my shake, and I was like, ugh. Jeremiah, that was so romantic. I swear Jeremiah kind of acts like a child in a lot of this book, because he is a child. And you know, this book was difficult to read because, you know, now that we're in the spoiler section, I can talk about this, but this book is about Jeremiah and Belly getting married when Belly's only 18 years old. Like, what the fuck is the rush? And it makes it even more frustrating because the only reason why he proposes in the first place is because he cheated on her and he feels bad for doing so. I mean, they do specify that they were technically like broken up, and he was on his trip in Cabo when he slept with this other girl, so like he thought that they were broken up, so he didn't think it was cheating, but it's the fact that he came back and lied to her about it, and it's just so messy and so gross that like his reaction to trying to apologize for the situation is by proposing to her with this tiny little baby ring. You know, something that is different about the book compared to the show is that apparently Belly is still a virgin in the book, and she never slept with Conrad when they were together, and she still hasn't slept with Jeremiah after 2 years of being with him. And so I feel like that makes it almost worse, you know, in the book, because it's like she's been saving herself for him. I don't know, the fact that they have been together for 2 years and they haven't had sex, and like the second he thought that they were broken up, he like literally went to Cabo and fucked another girl. I feel like that makes it even worse. somehow the fact that Belly's a virgin. And it really, really bothers me the way that Belly thinks that like her secret is like as bad as Jeremiah's secret, because she has this secret about how like she spent that one Christmas with Conrad. Like literally nothing happened between Belly and Conrad when they saw each other that Christmas, and I hate how she tries to act like her secret is just as bad as Jeremiah literally cheating on her. Like, no, bestie, what are we doing? I also think a big difference between season 3 of the show and this book is that Steven never gets in a car accident, because that's another big part of season 3 in the show, that Steven gets in this huge car accident and it's almost like deadly to him. That ends up being the moment that really like makes Jeremiah and Belly be like, oh my god, life is so short, let's get married. And also some moments from the show that are not a thing in the book. You know how Jeremiah's like a super senior in the show and how he's gonna have to do another year at college? Like that's not a thing in the book. And also like Belly talking about wanting to go to Paris to like study abroad, that's like a big point of tension in the show between her and Jeremiah, because at first Jeremiah was like, yeah, I'm fully supportive, I want you to go. And then after they get engaged in the show, Jeremiah's like, yeah, maybe you should just stay here with me because I would miss you too much. And so like that was also never a thing in the book. Like she never talked about wanting to study abroad or anything like that. Okay, and then to jump into some spoilers for this book that I technically haven't watched on the show yet. So at this point, I've only seen the first 5 episodes of season 3. So like you might know about some of these things by now in the show by the time that this video goes up. But as of this moment, these are spoilers for the book that haven't yet aired in the show. So if you don't want to be spoiled for things that might be coming, please skip ahead to the next section of this video because I'm going to spoil the rest of this book right now. So something that we saw that I just know is going to be happening in the show is that Jeremiah is like not really helping much with the wedding, and he's just like letting her pick everything, but he doesn't really seem to have any strong opinions about everything, and he's basically just making her do all of the work. And she keeps noticing how like unclean and like messy he is, and she's comparing him to Conrad in her head, being like, oh my god, Jeremiah's just so sloppy. I loved the scene of Conrad going to see Laurel and telling her that she should go to the wedding. Like I love that Conrad is the one to like push Laurel to actually go. Like that's so beautiful. And then I love the scene when Taylor and her mom like throw her a bridal shower and then her mom actually shows up for her. Like that was such a touching moment. I mean, I don't blame Laurel at all for being like so against this wedding, because I guarantee I would feel exactly the same way. I'd be like, you guys are too young. Like this is so stupid. I mean, there was that really embarrassing scene where they went to go like talk about credit and like getting a loan because they were trying to get an apartment together. And the way that both of them were saying that they only had credit cards open in the name of their parents, like neither of them had their own credit cards yet. I'm like, this is literally so embarrassing. Like you are way too young. I mean, isn't that the biggest red flag right there if you don't even have enough credit to get a loan yet? Because you're too young. Also, oh my god, that scene was so annoying when they were like apartment hunting and Jeremiah was like, yeah, like let's just live here, and it was basically like a frat house, and she was like, I don't want to live here in a frat house because the place was like dirty and it was loud, like there was loud music and whatever, and he didn't want to live in the places that were like nice for families. He just wanted to live in like a frat house. And then he was giving her shit for not wanting to live there. I was like, Jeremiah, come on. I also loved that adorable scene of Conrad going to see that old man Ernie, and the way that Ernie would give him so much shit and be like, you're still in love with her, aren't you? Like Ernie was just so cute, and I wonder if they're gonna include him in the show. Oh my god, I loved that scene when Conrad like injured himself while he was surfing and he was like bleeding everywhere, and then Belly goes to like help him with that, and they share this like very almost like intimate moment that's just a little bit too intimate because she's getting married to his brother like super soon. I just loved the tension in that scene. I thought it was so great. And then, oh my god, when shit really hits the fan at the end, when Conrad overhears these guys talking about how like Jeremiah hooked up with this girl on the Cabo trip and he finds out that Jeremiah cheated on her. Oh my god. But I love how he went straight to Belly and he tells her like, Jeremiah hooked up with somebody and like, I'm so sorry you had to find out from me. The way that she has to tell him like, I already knew, and like that she forgave him for that, and the way he's so pissed. He's like, you deserve so much better than to like marry this asshole who cheated on you. And then I love the way that he was confessing his feelings to her in that moment, and that was literally like the weekend of her wedding. Like this is happening like days or maybe even one day before she's getting married. And then the next day Conrad basically says like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was drunk and like I didn't mean what I said kind of thing, because he's just trying to like save face with her because he's thinking she doesn't feel the same way about him, so he wants to still be able to like look her in the eyes, you know, as she's marrying his brother. And then that scene when Conrad goes to the cafe with Laurel, Oh my god, they're so sweet. And the way they were talking about how much they miss Susanna, and the way that Conrad tells Laurel that he's like still so in love with Belly. Like, oh my god, that scene hurt me. Then, oh my god, that scene when Belly went back to Jeremiah and she tells him about everything that just happened with Conrad, and Jeremiah literally says to her, he says, "Are you marrying me to erase him?" And I was like, ooh, the fucking tea, bro. And apparently Jeremiah's all fucking pissed in that scene because I guess Conrad had told him that they spent that one Christmas together and Belly never said anything, and so Jeremiah always thought that she was keeping some kind of secret. And then of course, you know, Jeremiah like storms off after his fight with Conrad, and the wedding is like happening and Belly is like waiting on him and none of them know where he went. So of course Conrad goes after him and they have this like really intense fight. Conrad's like, "Just hit me because it'll make you feel better." And then Jeremiah's like, "No, that'll make you feel better." And then they like say some really awful things to each other and Jeremiah like beats the shit out of Conrad. Then I was like, oh, because Conrad gave him this letter that was like written by their mother for him on his wedding day. But when Jeremiah opens the letter, it says, "Dear Conrad," and their mom had written to him about how much he loved Belly. And Jeremiah's like, "This is your letter." And I was like, oh. But I hated how Jeremiah was like treating Conrad in that scene because Conrad did admit that he still had feelings for her. And then Jeremiah's like, "Oh my god, like you gave me your blessing, like fuck you." And Conrad was like, "Yeah, I gave you my blessing because I thought you were gonna like treat her right and not like fucking cheat on her." But then I hate the way that Jeremiah was just really shutting him out after that. And he was like, "I don't want you to be at the wedding. I don't want you in my life. You're not my brother anymore. You're dead to me." Like, oh my god, he's so fucking dramatic. Like, what a little baby. Belly is just so frustrating because she's like, "You and I were never anything." And she's trying to like say anything that she can to let Conrad know that she's over him and she wants to marry Jeremiah, even though everybody fucking knows that that's not true. Then of course, you know, there's a conversation between, you know, Jeremiah and Belly where they decide to call off the wedding. They decide that they're not right for each other because she's still in love with Conrad. She can't deny that she's still in love with him. But then what I love was that there was a flashback chapter kind of talking about the infinity necklace because Conrad brings her back the infinity necklace at the end and I was like, oh my god, like the symbolism. But I love that flashback when they were talking about like the stars and the planets and infinity and what it all means. I love when the flashback says, "We didn't know what was ahead of us then. We were just two teenagers looking up at the sky on a cold February night. So no, he didn't give me flowers or candy. He gave me the moon and the stars. Infinity." Dude, that was cute. I don't care what you say, that's cute. But the craziest thing to me about this is that we only get, there's a scene where they have like one conversation about how like, okay, we're not gonna get married. And then the next chapter says a couple years later. And so I'm like, oh, okay, like we don't get any kind of closure or like resolution with what just happened with that huge falling out. We don't get to see the family's reaction to like her not marrying Jeremiah. So we just flash forward to a few years later when Belly is opening a letter from Susanna that she wants her to read on her wedding day. And I'm like, wait, what? And in the letter she says, "Oh, I hope you're 30 years old and that you found a nice man," whatever. And she's like, "Oh, Susanna, you're wrong. I'm 23. And she's marrying Conrad. At the end of this book, like, oh, Belly, what the fuck? What do you mean? Like, did you learn nothing from the first almost wedding? I mean, the fact that she was gonna marry Jeremiah when she was only 18 years old and now she's 23, which like, yeah, I know that's like 5 years later and she is a little bit older, but like, I just still think it's so funny that even in Susanna's letter, she's like, "I hope you're in your 30s getting married." And she's like, "LOL, I'm only 23. But like, we just get everything in like a one chapter recap of like everything that happened after the falling out. And I'm like, how is this part this short? Like, I just read an entire 3-book series just to have us like barely be with Conrad at the end. We just get this half-assed like, "Junior year, I studied abroad, I went to Spain, yada yada yada. Spain is where I got my first letter from him." She said Conrad started writing her these letters and then the first time I saw him again was after my college graduation and I just knew. And then she says, "We are getting married." And they exchange like a tiny little piece of dialogue and it says they see Jeremiah there at the wedding with his date and he like smiles at them like he approves. And they go to like get out of the car after they get married and he says, "I go wherever you go." And then it says, "We are married. We are infinite. Me and Conrad." And the story just ends. And I'm like, bitch, are you fucking for real? Not only was that such an unsatisfying ending because like we didn't even get to see her and Conrad come back to each other. We just get this ridiculous flash forward to when they're getting married 5 years later. I just wanted to see so many more of the things. I also want to know, how is the family feeling about her marrying Conrad now after she was literally gonna marry Jeremiah? Like, that is definitely some hot gossip, some juicy tea. And like, I just want to know how they're reacting to this. Like, are they approving of Conrad? I mean, I'm sure that they do approve of Conrad but like I needed way more closure in that scene. I just hate that like we don't actually get to see the first time Belly and Conrad interact again after these 5 years. Like so much happened there and there was so much falling out. Like I could have read another book at the end, you know what I'm saying? Like I just can't believe it wraps up so quickly. I mean, after the end of the book, we do get to see some of the letters that Conrad actually had written to her from Spain. So like at least there is that for closure. But like what? I just think the ending of this book was so unsatisfying and I can't wait to see how they do it for the show because I am so sure that the show is gonna like flesh it out way better. And I think that's probably why there's like way more episodes this season, is so they can properly flesh out that part. You'll have to let me know if you've read this book series. How do you feel about it? Like how did you feel about the ending of this? And which team were you on? Like were you on Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah throughout the series? Like did you change your mind at any point throughout the series? I had an absolute blast reading these books over these last 2 days, but I do think that my general recommendation is that the show is so much better than the books. Like, and I would just recommend, if you're interested in this series at all, I would recommend watching the show over reading the books. I mean, if you're liking the show and you're looking to get more into it, I do recommend reading the books because they are fun, they're silly, you can get through them very quickly, but I do think the show is just so much better in terms of having so much more emotion, and like I connect with the characters so much more in the show. But either way, I'm really glad that I read these books and that I had such a fun time doing it, and thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was a fun vlog for you to watch. Please do let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!